Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Meetinghouse of Provincetown, where we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and where we support each other in our spiritual search for truth and meaning. My name's Ellen Anthony, and I'm leading the service this morning along with Claire Willis. We are co-chairs of the worship committee, and I'm also part of Racial Justice Provincetown. It's good to be here with you this morning, and we also welcome those who are joining us online via live stream. Before we go on with our service, I have just a few announcements to share. Thank you so much for all who came to the Interfaith Cookout at St. Mary of the Harbor last Sunday. It was such a fun time, and the pastors have all agreed to make it an annual event. The Board of Directors meeting, which was scheduled this month was scheduled during the picnic, will be rescheduled for next Sunday, the 28th, on Zoom at 2 p.m. Our little free pantry is getting lots of use this summer, so please continue to bring in donations if you can, and we're so appreciative of all the ways that you support this ministry. You might have noticed that the recording of last week's service was chopped in half due to a YouTube interruption. That's now been resolved. Thank you so much, Will and Sean. And if you'd like to watch this recording, the recording of last week's sermon entitled Sad Happens, it's now available online. This morning, our hearts go out to Kurt Reynolds, whose partner Michael Stone passed last week. So I've lit a candle for you both, and we hold you very dearly this morning, Kurt. Finally, if you are here in person today, we hope that you will stick around for a little while after the service ends for coffee and conversation downstairs in Acker Bosworth Hall. Now let's take a moment to affirm our affirmation, our community's covenant. You can find that on the little purple laminated card in your pew, or just listen line by line as I say it and repeat after me. Love is the spirit of this meeting house. This is our great covenant. To dwell together in peace. To seek the truth in love. And to help one another. And now, as we light our chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you watching online to light a candle wherever you are. In this way, we can feel connected even when we are apart. I invite Miriam to light our chalice this morning as I read these words by Dag Hammarskjöld. Each morning, we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, and to give back. And now I invite you to join me in singing our opening hymn, number 42, Morning So Fair to See, in the gray hymnal. Number 42, Morning So Fair to See. Please rise as you are able. Respect
Good morning. My name is Claire, and I'll be offering the reflection this morning, which is called Praying with Poems. So the first reading this morning is a poem by Julia Fehrenbacher called I Am Right Here. I went out looking for God, kept repeating the same three words. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? And then the sun reached her long, warm arms through the stormy gray. Then, like she always does, the ground kept holding me. Then my own strong legs carried me to the top of the biggest hill, even though part of me wanted nothing but to lie down and sleep forever. Then, though it sounds too good to be true, not just one rainbow, but two were beaming their light all over me, and some bird I couldn't see called me from the top of the fir tree. All of it was right here, repeating the same four words. I am right here. I am right here. I am right here. I invite you now into a time of meditation and prayer. During this time, or at any time during the service, you are welcome to light a candle at the table to the right of the pulpit, where there is a journal to record your thoughts and prayers. After our prayer, we will sing together Spirit of Life, hymn number 123, which is also printed on the purple laminated cards in your pew. We will first sing in English and then in Spanish. I don't do this a lot. There's another, I want to invite you to have this poem be a meditation. It's called The Peace of Wild Things, and it's by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down in the wood drake, where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars, waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free.
second reading this morning is A Prayer for Everyday Life by Julia Fehrenbacher. Let me breathe only grace today, only that which slows, steadies, softens, sparks, only that which points to the blossoms inside the broken, the poetry inside the pain, the nourishing newness inside the now. Let me breathe only grace today, only that which invites me to speak my very own language for as long as I have breath, only that which hums, you can, you will. Let me breathe only grace today, only that which notices the tired and says, lie back, love, rest, for as long as you need to. It's not about how much you do, but how full you are. And my God, how beautiful you are when you are full. I now invite you to sing hymn number 1007 in the Teal hymnal. There's a river flowing in my soul. That's 1007 in the Teal hymnal. There's a river flowing in my soul. Please rise as you are able. A poem from John Rodell. The places in our heart where the world took bites out of us may never fully heal and will likely become wide, open spaces. Be careful to not fill them with just anything or anybody. Your wounds aren't supposed to become attics for you to hoard unnecessary junk. These holes in our hearts are holy places, are holy sites, and we should treat them as such. So when visiting your old wounds, make sure to take your shoes off and turn off your cell phone. Sit by candlelight and watch how the shadows tell the story of how brave you are to survive. Now is the time in our service where we take a collection for the ongoing support of this meeting house and our shared ministry. As we enjoy a musical reflection by our choir, we welcome your donations here in the sanctuary or online through PayPal or Venmo. You can find that information on the website at uumh.org, and there are QR codes in the pews as well. I invite 3 volunteer ushers to come up for the collection. On or off-site, your donations are gratefully received.
Praying with Poetry. Many months ago, while I was facilitating a writing group for people living with cancer, I offered this writing prompt. Is there something that you collect or that you have more of than you need that others in the group might not know? Now, this is a group that knows each other really well. One woman shared with us that she had 54 bras, as she could never quite find the right one. Another person shared that they always made sure they had at least 75 rolls of toilet paper on hand, and this had become an obsession since COVID and the shortage that she experienced during that time. A third person said she collected scarves, that she had 40-some-odd scarves, most of which she never wore, but it was comforting just to know they were on hand when she felt chilly. What do you have more of than you need? One of the things that I collect is poems. I have over 2,000 poems on my desktop, and every time I hear one that I love, I ask the person for a copy and I file it away. Often I never return to read it, but there is some reason I grasp and grab at them and feel the need to have copies when I hear one I love. It's a form of comfort for me. I've begun to think of poetry as the way I pray. I think for a moment about the times when I most hear poems read. When do we hear it? When someone's ill, at funerals, celebrations of life, at gravesides, weddings. We share poems with the bereaved, in sermons, and writing prompts. Often meditations are introduced through the use of a poem. Poetry tends to collect strangers. At a poetry reading, where no one may know one another in the room, there is something that connects us through the reading. And I wonder if it's because the poems have a way of pointing and exposing our inner life in a public setting. Have you ever been to a poetry reading where there is a pervasive and palpable resonance in the room when the poem has been read, often expressed with ah or It's like you feel it in your body. I suspect this occurs because poetry bypasses our cognition, our thinking mind, and tends to go right to our heart, and sometimes even into our body, softening and opening it to the words and experience of the poet. Is that not part of what a good prayer does? Does it not touch us in some unspeakable place? The poet and the author, Mark Nepo, writes, "Poetry is born from the heart. The heart is the tuning fork of the sacred. When things touch us, the tuning fork reverberates." Poems, like prayers, slow us down. A poem often calls us back to notice and attend to the embodied world around us and to our internal lives. In this way, to me, poetry is like prayer. Both poetry and prayer remind us that there's more to say about reality than can be said in words, though in both we use words to try to glimpse what is beyond words. And both poems and prayers make space to name our deepest longings, lamentations, and loves. Perhaps why that is the poetry of the Psalms became the first prayer of the church. I remember last summer Rev. Kate talking about what prayer was or wasn't. Her words were something to the effect of, "We don't know what outcome prayers may have, but we do know that the aspirations they carry tenderize and comfort our hearts with one another." Those words really touched me. When we reach out beyond ourselves in a posture of humility, vulnerability, or aspiration, we're really in a prayer stance. One of the aspirational poems offering us great wisdom I have heard often at funerals is Mary Oliver's poem, "In Blackwater Woods." I'm going to read it. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have learned in my lifetime leads back to this, the fires in the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes, to let it go, to let it go. I'm going to repeat the last three lines. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes, to let it go, to let it go. This meditative prayer poem invites us to recognize the interconnectedness of all living things, to sink into the present moment, which is fleeting. Mary Oliver's sensory language and vivid imagery create a sense of the beauty and impermanence of the natural world. To love what is mortal, knowing our own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. Such wisdom, such a deep and difficult invitation, and yet so necessary. Mary Oliver describes poetry like this: as prayer, beauty, comfort, agitation, declaration, and thanksgiving. She writes, if you say it right, it helps the heart to bear it. Doesn't her beautiful poem in Blackwater Woods say it in a way that helps you bear the unbearable truth of impermanence? Another poem with which many of you are likely familiar is called The Guest House. It's by the poet Rumi. So what makes this poem feel like a prayer? Let me read it. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. In this poem, to me, Rumi invites us to be with what is. My Buddhist teacher tells me repeatedly that the source of our suffering is our preferences, our wanting things to be different than they are, wanting a new job, a new relationship, a new home, a new president. Sorry, I had to say that. Better health, a new body, a different life. The list of preferences we each carry is endless. What would it be like to say yes to what is, to what we have been given, to be content, and then to strengthen ourselves to bear whatever is? One of the questions I often ask the folks with whom I work, many of whom who are grieving or living with a difficult diagnosis, is, this has happened. What sense do we make of it? What is this situation asking of you? What do you need to strengthen or cultivate in yourself to be with this change in your life? What if we thought of what happens to us as a message sent from beyond? Might it shape how we might make meaning in our lives? James Cruz, another favorite and contemporary New England poet, has written a poem called Saying Yes. Isn't saying yes to life a kind of prayer? An opening of the heart? A willingness to meet and be with what is? Say Yes by James Cruz. Say yes to suede sandals you slip on to step outside. Yes to sun on your arms, even the pink welt of a mosquito bite rising up to greet you. Say yes to this clump of wild geraniums growing in perpetual shade beyond the house through a rip in the forgotten blue tarp. Say yes to tiny pink flowers winking in the dark you move deeper into so that you may receive their promise. Yes, they say, you too can find ways to thrive in those places where light seems scarce. James asks us where we are invited to say yes in our life right now. What are some aspects of your being alive right now which are either pleasant or unpleasant that you might be called to say yes to? Where might you say yes over and over, even though the light seems scarce? Can you see those places possibly as guides from beyond, bringing something that you cannot yet imagine into your life? I wonder if saying yes might be a way of building a shelter of kindness inside ourselves, a refuge of forgiveness, the critical fault-finding parts of each of us. Not pushing against what is or what's happening, but cultivating a willingness to be with what is, regardless of what is, with kindness. What would it mean to have a heart that was ready for anything? I want to read a poem by Julia Fehrenbacher, which I think of as an invitation. It's called The Most Important Thing. I am making a home inside myself, a shelter of kindness, where everything is forgiven, everything allowed, a quiet patch of sunlight to stretch out without hurry, where all that has been banished and buried is welcome, spoken, listened to, released. A fiercely friendly place I can claim as my very own. I am throwing arms open to the whole of myself, especially the fearful, fault-finding, falling apart, unfinished parts, knowing every seed and weed, every drop of rain has made the soil richer. I will light a candle, pour a hot cup of tea, gather around the warmth of my own blazing fire. I will howl if I want to, knowing this flame can burn through any perceived problem, any prescribed perfectionism, any lying limitation, every heavy thing. I am making a home inside myself where grace blooms in grand and glorious abundance, a shelter of kindness that grows all the truest things. I whisper hallelujah to the friendly sky. Watch now as I burst into blossom. Imagine what it would be like to live inside a home you've built for yourself, which is a shelter of kindness, a refuge. What a refuge we would offer ourselves. In a famous poem by Galway Kinnell called St. Francis and the Sow, there's a line in which he expresses a similar idea of living in a shelter of kindness. He writes, "The bud stands for all things, even for those things that don't flower, for everything flowers from within of self-blessing." Everything flowers from within of self-blessing. living with the gentleness of self-blessing. Imagine that. Imagine what it would feel like to live with this, rather than turning on ourselves when something goes wrong, or blaming ourselves, or speaking harshly to ourselves, but living in a spirit of forgiveness for our humanness, our frailties, our limitations, our precious scars. I want to close by reading this prayer poem by James Cruz. He writes, the name of the poem is "The World Loves You Back." Even if no one ever touched you with the tenderness you needed, believe that the world's been holding you in its arms since the day you were born. You are not an accident or an afterthought. Let rain on the roof remind you. Let sun on the skin and the neon orange of the Mexican sunflower at which a hummingbird pauses to drink. There are so many ways to hold and be held, and you could spend your whole life tallying them up without ever reaching the end of the list. This poem by James invites us to have faith, to believe that the world has held us in its arms since the moment we were born, and to really take in the countless blessings of beauty that surround us all. I live in a house of poetry. When someone dies, I turn to poetry. When there is an occasion of celebration, I turn to poetry. When I cannot find words to express what feels inchoate, I turn to poetry. It contains the mysteries of truth that cannot be reduced to linear thinking. It helps me feel connected to the human race. It lessens my loneliness. It helps me see beauty where I may have missed it. It expresses my gratitude. It helps me feel connected to something larger than life. It slows me down. I notice the blessings of my daily life more deeply. It often gives me language for what I feel but haven't found words to express, touching me in unspeakable places. It moves me from my thinking mind to my feeling heart. Most importantly, it expands my capacity to love. Isn't that what prayer does?
It has become our practice to pose a question based on the theme of the service each week. It can be a topic of sharing at coffee hour today or with friends during the week. If you'd like to delve deeper into this question, we invite you to join us on our Zoom coffee hour Tuesday evening at 5 o'clock. Please contact the office if you need the link for this. The question this week is, in what ways has prayer or poetry connected you to the sacred? In what ways has prayer or poetry connected you to the sacred?
So in closing, may we each find a way to pray that opens our hearts and connects us to more deeply to ourselves and to one another.